This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio is brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.
Here he goes.
There we go. Hello.
Let me get that.
Hello.
Let me get that for you.
See, if I had an able-bodied assistant who could do that stuff for me, it would be okay.
Are you kidding me? Time? I'm not a timer guy. Not good.
How y'all doing?
Good. Good. Yourself?
Excited today. Exciting episode. Great guest coming up on a subject that you and I seems over the last couple of years have been hearing more and more about.
We don't know anything about it, but we're hearing more and more about it.
But yet our angling lives has been influenced by it.
Oh my God.
Numerous times throughout the years.
Every time we go fishing, pretty much. It's on the board.
Joining us here shortly is a world-renowned scientist, Canadian scientist. He is an independent contractor, a crayfish biologist, if you will.
Come on now.
His name is Dr. Premek Hamr, and he is the authority. He is the voice when it comes to crayfish.
He's the man.
He is the
main man.
In fact, they call him Dr. Crayfish in some circles. That's how.
That's right.
But anyways, a fascinating guy. He'll come up, talk to us here in a few minutes about a problem we have in this part of the world, in Canada in general, and the U.S., with invasive crayfish.
Yeah, you wouldn't think right now we say we're talking crayfish, you would think, oh, good, we're going to talk about the fishing part of it and all that kind of stuff. No, there's a lot more to it than a problem.
That's what we want to talk about.
Yeah, but anyway. there's more to this subject, people.
Yeah, a lot more.
You might want to stick around.
Fishing Canada, the store.
Who?
Fishing Canada. Canada.
By
the way,
I've heard of those guys.
By the way, I just want to give a shout out to my actually two people, Tim Dawson from Campus Crew and my grandson Nicky.
Give me a hell yeah!
Who come up with this wonderful hoodie, which obviously is part of the Campus Crew lineup that you see behind us, but this one is a one of just for moi
so
that they made up.
Same materials and everything, right?
It's the same hoodie. It's just
it's almost exactly the same as this.
Same as that. Same
just
as that one there.
Yeah.
Just got my 69 Zetter.
69!
My Z. The Z on there. Anyways, thank you very much for making that happen. Anyway, at the store, fishingcanada.com or shop.fishingcanada.com. I wonder how many people try and get on there.
It's got to be a tough one. That's got to be a tough one.
I wonder how many people try and they put an ing or an IN.
Or they put an apostrophe in there.
Yeah. You know, we might have screwed up on that.
Oh, I think there was a big screw up on that. I mean, but when you invented this, it was just television. There was no worries of internet, people typing it wrong. They see it and they say, hey, I might have to spell out one.
It's actually available for sale. Fishingcanada.com.
With the ING.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. They've been trying to sell that for 100 years.
Oh.
My question would be...
How much?
I didn't even bother. I don't need it. I got enough problems here.
Yeah, no kidding.
My question being, could we change it at this point in our lives?
Well, we are changing it right there. We're not putting the apostrophe in, and when we have to put it in a website or an email address. So it is kind of changed.
But even that, though, shop.fishingcanada.com seems like an awful lot of effort. What if it was just fnc.com?
That's what I was thinking. FNC would be just so easy. Our whole lives would have been. But people didn't like FNC. A lot of people didn't like the FNC changeover too, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, but you know what?
So.
We can't spend the rest of our lives where there's a lovely countess going by again. Hello.
FNC.com is taken.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's it. The FNC is an old war gun, Canadian war gun, if I'm not mistaken. Dean, can you look at that? Can you look that up quickly? If you say FNC gun, I think you're going to find that it was a war gun, a very popular.
It was a gun. I can't put that on the screen because we'll get demonetized.
Right.
It is a gun.
It is a gun. Enfield, I think,
smart,
was the manufacturer. Well, you didn't know the manufacturer.
It don't matter.
Well, it does matter.
Gun's a gun, as long as I own it.
True.
I need it.
Anyways, on fishingcanada.com, the shop, you'll see all kinds of goodies.
No guns. No guns on it, but-
No, not right now. But
Not right now. We'll get a couple for sale there, so don't you worry.
let us know what you think when you go there. By the way, is this a poll there that you want them to do, Dean? Is that what I'm hearing here?
When they go to press the X button before they leave, they're
Yes.
going to get prompted with a poll.
Oh,
We would love them to fill that out.
lovely. That's the lovely Dean Taylor, by the way.
Come on now.
Anybody who might not be familiar with him.
So you get the lovely Countess and the lovely Dean
Countess,
Taylor.
we
We're in the
got
same
Vova.
Is Vova lovely too?
Oh, Vova's lovely all the
Okay.
time.
I don't know.
Nick
He's-
is in his office right now. He
Lovely
probably
Nick.
did
He's bailed on us.
I
very
think we should
quickly.
put a camera in that room. And so he could be with us while we do the podcast, but just from a secondary location. No?
I think we get demonetized.
Yeah,
was
there
not-
might be a lot of demonetization. I think you might want to put a gun up on that screen instead of that, to be honest with you.
Well, it has something to do with loading your gun and unloading your gun.
Oh!
So, I mean, technically,
Woo!
you know,
True enough. True that.
You know,
True
it
that.
is a handgun.
There's got to be one
In his
person that would
case.
like to watch it. I don't know whether too many, but there might be one sick son of a bitch out there.
Season 39. Did I tell you, folks, season 39 of Fishing Canada
Come on.
show?
You
Give
got
me a hell yeah.
69 and you got
69,
39. Everything's all about okay.
It's just nicely running down its course.
What episode is this? Is this 139? Oh, it's 154. Sorry.
No. I'm talking the Fishing Canada show.
I know. I just thought it.
Season 39 is airing on Global Television Network, coast to coast to coast, Saturday mornings.
Come on now.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't aware, and I know there's a lot of you who are aware that we are not connected with the Fishing Canada show people. I know that. But it's not true. We are, in fact, those
Really?
people.
You look like that
And,
guy on the
I
screen
know.
there.
I know. I had a guy last night. It was funny. I had to on the way home. I got a call saying, "Honey, can you do that?" So I said, "Sure." So I run into the local grocery store. It was like 8:00. Run in there, and I just got to pick up one item, and I'm going to run back out. And I have to. It's all like in my mind. I know exactly where and how, and it's going to take me exactly 3 minutes to get in and out, and I'm home. And so I start my mission and I run and I'm going past the deli and there's a guy standing there ordering some deli meats and it's like somebody phoned him. He turns around and he literally got in my path. How you doing? You met my son and me at the thing and we did this and oh my God, it's fantastic. And I'm saying, oh, that's great. And you know me, I hate being rude, right? And I always have time for everybody. So don't take this the wrong way. I love it. But in this particular case, I was really pushed for time. So anyway, so I said, yeah, and the whole thing, and I'm trying to get away, but he's he's literally blocking my way. So you know what I did? It was embarrassing to say this because I'm not that type of guy. But I literally had to turn around and walk back the way I came and go around another part of the store.
No way.
It was wild.
Holy moly.
Crazy. I mean, I love you. Thank you. And that's, but
Was he just wanted to keep going? He wouldn't let you go.
What a great guy.
He wouldn't let you go.
His son met us somewhere years ago. And it changed his life, and it was a fantastic story. We just love hearing this stuff. There's very few times in my life where I don't give 100% to stuff like that because it's what we work for. But this was the one case where I had to be in and out, and I had it all mapped out, calculated in my head. I knew exactly how it was going to go down. I've done it a million times. I'm going to go in, slide through the back, over there, counter 5, pick up, out the door. In 3 minutes, I'm back on the way. The last thing I expected was this big burly guy.
Big
blocking
linebacker
my
there,
way.
blocking you up.
Anyways,
That's the best.
God love you.
That'd
What are
be
you
a
gonna
great
do?
little skit. I'd love to see a camera on that.
Oh,
My God, that'd be perfect. And you
But
could-
it would. I swear to God, it was like somebody called him because he was focused on the deli counter talking to the guy behind there ordering his meats. I'm walking up the aisle. He didn't do one of those double takes like the normal people do, right? Just because they can't believe. He literally just jumped back, turned around, and just went at it.
You were fresh meat to him. You get the fresh meat counter there. Oh, that's great. What a great
Anyways,
story.
season 39, Fishing Canada. Yes, we are the Fishing Canada guys. If you've not watched the show before, well, I don't know what you've been doing, but you might want to change that. Saturday mornings.
Especially now that you listen to us a little bit, then check us out on the TV too.
Saturday
or
mornings.
on a Monday on the YouTube channel there.
You could do that, or a Monday you could go to the Sportsman channel, or you could go to WFN in the U.S., or you could go to YouTube, or you could go...
I'm a little disappointed in WFN, I gotta
What?
say.
What's the matter?
So, I love them. I have their station and all that. I watch it all the time.
Yeah.
But whenever they talk about the Canadian Fridays or whatever day it is, that I've never seen us on it once. They have all the different Canadian superstars and whatever.
Well, maybe we're not
Ants and
superstars.
Pete.
Did you ever think of that?
Well, I think we've been there long enough that they should have us along with others. Not us alone. I think along with others. A little disappointed.
Funny you say that. Huh. We should look into it. Helgi was supposed to be on an episode
He's
with
from
us.
Sportsman Channel.
Sportsman's Channel.
He used to be with WFN.
What's the same people, guys?
Is it?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I think,
it is. What do you mean you believe so?
Sportsman
It's the
Canada
same-
is-
it's the same people. It's all owned by the same group. So we can talk to Helgi. Helgi. In fact, the deal I did with WFN was done through Helgi.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Well,
Anyways,
we'll have a-
so whenever he comes on the show, Dean, was he supposed to be on? Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
twice we tried to line it up.
He's
it was
pretty
during,
tough. He's
it was during
hunting
hunting season.
And
Well, I know he's very impotent. There's
Well,
no
that for
doubt
sure.
about that. If you know Helgi, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But anyways, maybe a little love for the Fishing Canada guys, just to throw out a little picture of that lake trout right there up there, Ange holding that laker.
Well, who else?
Hell, throw Nick up there if you have to.
Who else is on that?
Well, there's others.
Is there anybody left in the business? I thought you and I were like the only.
No, there's
Last
West Coast.
man's-
There's West Coast stuff, right?
Oh,
there's
right.
BC
Right.
stuff. There's a couple of Ontarians that are still out there.
Wow.
One is on WFN. I'm not sure if the other one is. I don't think he is.
Okay.
And they were up there, and we ain't.
Huh.
So, I mean, I know we're not the prettiest guys in the world, and I could probably foresee that they might
there
want
is-
to not show our faces, but maybe
there
show
is
the fishies
something
or
wrong
show a
here
logo or
because
something.
there is something wrong because I got a call. I told you this. I think I told you. If I didn't tell you, I'll tell you here now on the show. I got a call the other day from a good friend of ours. He used to be an employee of ours. He's still in the business. And he said, hey, are you guys not with Yozuri anymore? I said, yeah. No, you're not. I said, well, okay.
You're not.
As far as I know, yeah, why? He said, well, you're not on their website anymore. I went to the website to look at some stuff, and I clicked on to the media and pro staff where you guys used to be. You're not there anymore. So maybe it's a trend. Maybe.
Were we ever there?
Yeah.
Yeah? You saw it for sure?
It seems, well, I don't want to say for sure,
Right.
but it seems to me that
I don't.
early in our relationship, I clicked on there just to check. I got to verify all this stuff, and we were there.
I can honestly say I've never checked, so I can't say, but I know we're on the Garmin one. You're on the Garmin one for sure. I don't know about and Ontario Tourism. I don't know Yozuri. That's interesting.
Anyways, we got to look into that.
Boy, they're starting to hate us now.
Well, I think we're being canceled. What is the cancel culture?
Well, you know what? 39 years. They're probably sick of us.
Okay, but wait one more year, please. We got our 40th coming. Please hang in there one more year. Anyways, did I sound like I was, see there, was I pleading?
A little desperate
Was I
there, but that's
pleading?
okay.
All right. Listener feedback.
Yes.
This one's a good one because we're responding to this one in episode 147. And it was a great question that was asked, or a great point made by the person. But we questioned, because the handle was Ladybug Adventures, we didn't know whether Ladybug was male or female.
Yeah.
And because ladybugs come in both male and female, not to be confused with some crayfish that don't, which you'll hear coming up here in the show.
You're smart.
Oh, I'm just a wealth of
Biologist, aren't you?
Yeah. That was there was only one thing that stood between me and a career in science.
Biology? Okay.
Biology.
What was that?
One thing only. Grade 7. That was it. If I could have got through that bad boy, I know I was off and running. Just kidding for you kiddies watching that. Make sure you take your vitamins and you go to school.
You're not kidding. You're saying you better pass grade 7. You need
Otherwise-
to, because otherwise you're going to end up like that. You don't want to be like that, Jimmy.
Anyways, in response to episode 147, Ladybug Adventures writes an email. And it goes on to say that we read the comment on the show, and one of Ladybug's comment was about, first of all, questioning male or female, and Ladybug is male. And the reason that the name Ladybug was used, because him and his 2 daughters were setting up the account when they were little kids, and Ladybug seemed to fit in.
I was a little worried when they said, I want to write something to clarify some really funny questions that came up. And I don't know what he means by funny. He says, I am indeed a guy. So I was
And the
worried
other
at first.
thing that we implied, I think, Dean, you implied this.
Dean?
Was that he must be from BC because he was talking about barbless hooks.
Yeah.
Right?
I assume because they're pretty passionate about barbless. So I thought if someone would write in, they would probably be from out there.
Well, he clarifies that too. In fact, I'm from Ontario, he says. So there. Although he consumes a lot of West Coast YouTube stuff, apparently, fishing videos. So there's a bit of draw or connection to that. Now, he says that he's experienced both salmon and steelhead using barbless hooks. And
how do you land a steelhead with barb? I mean, woo!
See,
they're nuts. Those river steelies out there. Oh, that'd be you'd lose a couple. You'd have to.
I was thinking about this from a previous another episode that we did about barbless hooks, and I was thinking, and I know. Here we go.
You always say that, and I know. Here you go.
Well, because I get so many nasty people reaching out to me when I talk like this.
Do they block you in grocery stores and everything like that?
I'm canceled everywhere. They cancel me everywhere. But at the end of the day,
what are you, Steve Nizwicki now? That's his saying.
Does he do that?
Oh my God! But at the end, you and I have talked about this. He says it 1,000 times a day. At the end of a day.
At the end of the day, it's all about the journey, right? You've heard this a million times before. It's all about the journey. Is the big journey involved in fishing, is it not the experience itself, or is it being able to claim victory over that fish? And victory, it seems, can only be claimed when you have that fish firmly in hand in front of a camera, and it's done. The deal is done. Now my conquest of this animal is complete, and I release it, and off you go.
I think you're one step too far in that. I agree that's probably for the most part it, but you don't have to have a camera because as any
that's the other question.
Angler
there you go.
Loves it. Every fish they catch when they finally land it, I got him. Okay, release it, and you're back again. So it's that little competition. I don't think you have to have a camera. That's your proof to somebody else.
But see, fishing should be, in my opinion, aside from the camaraderie that goes on between people, whether it's family or friends, aside from that, but fishing is, to me, it's a solitary thing. I feel good. If I'm out there, I don't care if there's 100 people around me. The moment during that journey, that's the highlight of that journey, that's for me. I did it for me.
Right.
It makes me feel good.
I think that's what everybody does.
So if I hook up onto a steelhead in this case, or a salmon or whatever, and I've got barbless baits and or hooks, and the thing gets off halfway during our wonderful encounter, so what? So what?
That maybe to you that might be a so what issue.
That's
but to
why
others,
I went for that instant, that moment, the highlight of that journey. And in this case, it was when it came out of the water and it slow-moed, did that thrashing, and the water spots are all over the sunshine and the gills. And then it went, pooh. That's the moment. I'm in.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm done. I'm happy. And that's why I think, and I've said it before, and I know I got some nasties attacking me for it. I think we should.
I love that. I think you just made a new. I have to interrupt. That's a new word that we could use for these internet
nasties.
F-ups.
They're just nasties.
You're a bunch of nasties.
And I'm the anti-angler because I don't believe in barbed hooks.
No. So people wouldn't think you're the anti-angler for that because that's a personal. You don't care about that fish getting away.
It should be made mandatory. I think there should be no questions asked. I think it should, if it has to be enforced by authorities, God forbid. But you know what? If we have to bring authorities in to enforce it, then we should enforce it. And every hook should not have a barb. Because at the end of the day, you don't need it. You don't need it. I know you're saying, but how about if I got that fish of a lifetime right there, and I'm gonna touch it any minute. I'm gonna grab it and touch and stroke that beautiful fish, and he gets away. I won't be able to tell my friends. I won't be able to show them. What am I gonna do? I know that. I know there's that element. I understand.
He says he does it every 13 episodes every year all the time.
Yeah, I know, but we got to change it. We've evolved. I used to drag my knuckles. Now I tuck my hands in my pocket.
To each their own, and I have a competition with that fish. See, you're a competitor with other people. I'm a competitor with that.
I'm competing with me. Remember that.
Right.
It's not a competition. Right. It's me enjoying that moment.
Okay, but I have to compete with that fish, and I have to lure it into biting. I want to get it there, and I'm going to look at it and say, God, you are a beautiful creature. Thank you, Lord, for that. There you go. Or, thank you, Lord, I'm going to cut him up and put him in the frying pan.
Well, that's a different ballgame.
So whatever reasoning, I want to get that fish to the bank, to the boat, to the whatever. It's just different. You can, you have your opinion, but you can't say for somebody else. Camaro burns too much gas in the environment. You should have an electric car.
We'll talk about this. By the way, everybody notice my beautiful Camaro? We'll talk about this Camaro in a moment, but
I'd like to. That's a nice car.
But even to the detriment of a fish. So what you're saying is I must conquer and I must hold and I must be
because if a fish is going to be, oh my God, that fish is going to die, I would say, cut my line, do whatever. I'd have no problem with that. But you don't know that.
You don't know that. But what we do know for a fact, and I don't think there's a respectable angler out there who will not agree with this, no matter how much we want to stir it around and make it smell sweet.
What'd you call those people? What was
nasties.
It? The nasties.
The
okay.
nasties.
The nasties are coming. Okay.
Right? No matter how much we do that, at the end of the day, we'd have to be total morons to believe that zero contact with that fish is healthier or as healthy or not as healthy as mauling that fish.
Okay.
Right. So we know that zero contact is going to ensure that fish survives.
That's right. So ban fishing.
See, there's a nasty. See, he's one of your. In fact,
I am one of them.
He could be your leader. Truth be known,
I'll be the leader.
He could be your leader.
I'll be a leader against moronic thoughts.
He could be your leader. He needs victory.
That's right.
I must conquer.
I love fishing. I love catching fish.
Take up something like if it's a competition between you. Get into the UFC's looking for new characters. You'd be perfect in UFC.
I'm getting too old to fish. I don't know about this fighting game. Might be.
You'd be perfect.
One thing I have noticed about fighting in my life, it hurts my face. Every time. Every damn time, and I don't like it.
And you can't figure out why.
I don't. What the hell? Every now and then it hurts my balls too.
I was going to say your face or your nuts. One of the two. Anyways, we're way off topic. But I just wanted to share that.
Ladybug, thank you for writing in and not being good with us and not being a nasty in the sense that we didn't know if you were male or female. So thank you for taking this.
And by the way, Ladybug apparently met you and Nick at a sportsman show recently.
There you go.
I must have been ill that day.
Well, you were probably barbless thinging and whatever you were doing.
Mandatory. 2 things before I die, folks. There are 2 things.
I think these nasties are going to be
2 things.
Egging that one on.
2, and they're going to be in tandem. Trust me on this.
Here we go.
And I'm not without my ability to influence people. So listen to me well. There are 2 things that I want to take to my grave. And I want to take to my grave that I somehow had a hand in enforcing two things.
One I agree with, but the other I don't. There you go.
Barbless hooks on all fishing lures.
Can I guess the next second one?
And life jackets
PFDs.
in the boat, on the body, the minute you step on the water.
There you go.
Mandatory. Boom. Done. Don't have to. And anyways, don't get me started. Those are the two things that I would like to accomplish before I hang it all up and go off to wherever it is that I'm going
I think
to.
you've gone off a long time ago. God.
And if you agree with any of that, by the way, let us know. If you're at one of the nasties, I don't want to hear from you.
Yeah, you can nasty.
Don't waste your time.
You can get a hold of me.
Yeah. Nasties line up behind him.
Yeah.
He's the leader.
I'm the King Nasty. Yeah. I might be a UFC fighter too.
That's where you need to go.
Cody to
you
teach
need
me.
to go duke it out with somebody, and then when you have a victory, a challenge, you can actually claim to be superior than that feller that you just knocked down.
You know what's crazy is that in my prime of all primes,
you were a fighter,
and in shape and all that, I'd get my ass kicked by the smallest strawweight woman in that league in an instant. It wouldn't even be a competition. One of those unranked ones that are so far down the line, they're just getting into it, they kick my ass.
I wonder.
Oh my God, there's no chance. Especially those jiu-jitsu girls, what I watched on the weekend, the world-class ones, never. See, they tie you up in a knot. Your nutsack could be over your nose in a second.
Do you remember Billie Jean King
Bobby Riggs?
Bobby Riggs?
Yeah.
There should be one of those for UFC.
MMA?
Yeah, MMA.
Oh, my God, no.
Like where you take, you know what I mean? I think
the toughest, maybe they've done it. I don't know.
Have they done that, Dean?
I know.
Craig Jones fought a girl.
He did?
Gabby Garcia or something. He beat her, but he's a pro, and so
did
is
he
she.
beat her up like he did?
No,
jiu-jitsu only.
Yeah, just grappling.
Wow.
But yeah, he beat her.
Have you ever watched Eddie Hall? The strongest man in the world, the British Eddie Hall.
Yeah.
Him taking on 2 and 3 guys at the same time in an MMA ring.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah,
watching that stuff.
That's
but it's just something that made me think of it. And he fires them around like the guy's my size, or between Dean's and my size, and he throws them around like a wet sack of shit. Anyway,
there's something we said, Bove? You just got
it's just the fighting. Bova doesn't like eating meat, and he doesn't like fighting, so he's good.
I thought he'd endorse my 2 items. He'd be into endorsing those, wouldn't he? He just up and left.
You should ask him when he comes back. You should ask him.
Wow.
He only wears his life jacket because we make him.
Yes,
you know that, right?
Yes.
Maybe he would do it now automatically, but he wouldn't have done it.
Do you know what I've noticed? The only person who does not just get up and walk out on us anywhere is Dean.
I get up and walk out when I talk to the people on the phone.
Well, no, but I know where you're going. You're going. You got to finish your job, right?
Yeah.
But you're the only person that doesn't walk out on us. Everybody else, from the Countess right down to Nick.
Yeah, but they're not on camera. Dean's on camera, so he's showing a responsibility of the
I
work.
just think he's a very responsible young man.
Come on now.
Appreciate that.
Has got a great future.
Wow.
That's what I think. That's
Very
my
nice.
personal
He's a
opinion.
handsome
I don't know.
bastard, too.
Huh?
He's a handsome bastard, too.
And he's a handsome young man, too. If I had a daughter of marrying age right now, I would be focusing right there.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I go that far.
There you go.
Come on now.
Conservation Corner, Dino. The humble goldfish, everyone's favorite aquatic pet. It's small, easy to care for. What's there not to love?
Even the cat may be mesmerized by the color and movements of your aquarium friends. Goldfish are great at home, but don't let them loose.
Releasing goldfish or other domestic aquatic pets or plants into natural environments is harmful to both your pet and the planet.
Goldfish disrupt ecosystems by outcompeting native species for food and resources in degraded habitats. They contribute to algae blooms, they kill aquatic wildlife, and pass viruses and diseases contracted in aquariums to wild fish.
They could even live up to 40 years and grow as big as a football. Anglers, this is where you come in. If you find a goldfish at your local fishing spot, report it to the Invading Species hotline or go online to eddmaps.com.
Remember to never dump your live bait into the water and risk spreading other aquatic invaders. Keep our lakes free from invaders and don't let them loose.
We interrupt this program to bring you the much anticipated bonus code for the latest Fish in Canada giveaways. This week's code is FISHERY. That's FISHERY, all capital letters, FISHERY. Just type that in the bonus code section of the contest and receive 100 free entries towards all our current giveaways. For those who haven't entered yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Head on over to fishingcanada.com while you listen to the rest of this episode. Click contests and sign up for all the latest Fish in Canada giveaways. And now, back to the show. In the news, Dino. In the news, contrasts here between two massive cases. I was reading the second one, and
the second one's disturbing.
I had a hard time finishing it, but I did.
That's the young'uns?
Yeah.
It's nasty.
The Utes, yeah. The first one's pretty bad too, but it's good. It's a good outcome.
But the first one is bad, don't get me wrong. But, it's kind of what you expect from poachers, kind of what you expect to hear about people that are breaking, violating the rules and regulations.
Multiple violations.
When it comes to harvesting animals.
It's not what you'd expect for the fine, which is good. In this case.
Not enough. I see.
But at least it's not the little, there you go, right?
So what was the total here? $40,000?
$35,071 plus 4,600, right? I think.
Yeah. So
$40,000.
So $40,000 for somebody who went out and illegally harvested two whitetails, right? Two deer. So I don't think it's enough. I think that
I agree. Now, I'll say the charges here. Among the counts, Alexander pleaded guilty were taking or possession of two deer, hunting without a license, hunting without a deer permit, selling illegally taken and possessed deer antlers, spotlighting or jacklighting, hunting without permission, 4 counts of that, tampering with evidence, theft, misdemeanor theft, and falsification. So you're right. It's not enough.
It's not enough.
And the part about this is I think the only...
Is that it?
That's it. So
holy shit.
That's why I think the fine was so big, because people care about deer that look like that. Like
that is a special deer right there.
If that was a little spike, I think he would have got like $1,000.
Yeah.
Really? That's all?
Yeah.
I really...
Right.
They don't punish.
Well, he got $4,000 for the other one, for the second deer, right?
True.
So maybe 4,600, so maybe another 4,600.
But it wouldn't have been this big of a deal.
No, that's an 18-point buck apparently.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
absolutely massive.
Look at this. Look at the thickness, the density of those.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I don't get it.
It's
I don't want to compare that to a human being by any means, and we shouldn't. But it is a living organism at the end of the day.
And he's committing crimes.
If you take it illegally, you are a criminal.
Absolutely.
And therefore, you need to be charged like a criminal. Can you imagine if we changed the way we deal with criminals that commit, I don't want to say it, but commit offenses against other human beings that only get off with a fine instead of jail?
What do you mean? They're just happening right now.
Well, okay. Well,
it happens every day now.
Good point.
It's bullshit like that.
Anyways.
So
it's a bunch of bullshit.
But the one that really, that's bad enough. You got to go check it out. Go to fishingcanada.com. There's a whole.
And I'll guarantee you that is not the only deer that boy has taken illegally.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's probably got a long history.
They're like career criminals, these guys. They'll go and he'll get caught. He'll go it again 2 years from now. I guarantee you. 3 years from now. I think I can get away with that one now.
Turn the catch and release culture that we have with criminals is the problem, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the second story particularly disturbs me. This one took place in Ohio. This other one is in Wisconsin. 4 Wisconsin poachers charged for killing over 100.
Oh my.
100 deer. Now, I know the number should not be the issue here, but I cannot stop thinking about that number, over 100 deer, because that's a very significant number. And the other thing that's significant about this story...
This is even more significant, I think.
...is that...
Or sick. Or
it's young boys.
Oh, yeah.
Minors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Teaching them.
And the fact that they were out torturing and maiming these animals and did it over a period of time. This was not done in one event, which this might have been, a couple of days, a spree, but this took place over a length of time, a period of time that would also tell you that it was premeditated. It wasn't just, I went nuts for a day, right? 16-year-olds were involved. And am I right or am I wrong? Is there a mother involved?
Yeah,
in
the
this
mother
as
would
well?
drive them around.
So mom was driving the kiddies out and was facilitating these kiddies going out massacring.
Well, she's driving the car, and they were trying to hit deer with the car.
Yeah.
She's the driver.
Yeah. And when you read this story, folks, and I want you to read it because it really smacks you in the face, because this is reality. Sometimes we get lost in our own little fantasy worlds, and we think everything is beautiful, and it's like Timbits hockey. Everybody wins. There's no losers, and oh my God, it's such a wonderful. Well, you need to read a story like this and bring you back to earth, and understand that's we don't live in a fairy tale world. We live in reality, and what the reality here is that a mother was facilitating kids under 16 years of age to go out and not only kill deer, but actually watch them suffer and move them from place to place and watch them suffer
and take
each
pictures
time, and take photos
Be proud
and videos
of this injured deer in their trunk, loaded up in the trunk, alive but injured. So you can't touch a deer normally; it'll kick and fight. This thing can't kick and fight. Still alive, head up like that, and then put it in the trunk. Open the trunk up. Let's get pictures here. Close the trunk. Moving on. Let's get pictures there. What a sick bunch of sons of bitches.
There was three kids and a mom.
Friggin' insane.
I don't know where this type of behavior would have come from. I don't know whether later we'll hear more as this thing goes through the legal system. I hope it goes through the legal system.
It is for the mother for sure. I think they've already, so this at time of recording, there's not a whole lot of information on that, but I know the mother she will be charged.
She should be incarcerated.
I think she will be, but the kids are going to get off with nothing.
They get nothing.
And to me, like a 16-year-old...
Juveniles, right? Juveniles.
A 16-year-old should be charged at that point.
Oh, my God.
Like, that's
Abso-friggin-lutely.
Like
16?
Like an 8-year-old knows that this stuff isn't okay.
Yeah.
Like it's...
It's a typical of our system.
Yeah.
You got to read the article because, honestly, it was so disturbing. I didn't know whether I could get through it. But I wanted to make sure I read every single piece of it, and it's absolutely disturbing what
disgusting and disturbing.
This foursome of human beings did. Over what period of time, Dean? Does it say at all?
So it said they went out. They admitted to going out 50 times.
50 times.
So I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know over how many years, but
50 times they were escorted by their mother.
Or took the car themselves sometimes.
Took the car themselves.
After mom taught them how to do this.
After mom taught them how to do this, obviously. Yeah. And went out and maimed and killed and punished and injured and then severed heads.
They used guns too. It's not just the car, but apparently they were using under caliber like 22s or a 410. I don't know whether they were using maybe a 20 gauge shotgun or something that would not give a clean kill to begin with.
So if we could just set the record straight, this is not this has nothing to do with hunting skills. These kids were not being taught how to hunt because this is not behavior that a hunter, I mean, it's so far removed from, and I want to make this perfectly clear because mainstream media doesn't want to hear that hunters, people who hunt, are actually a positive for the environment. They're probably the true stewards of our wildlife and natural places are people who hunt and harvest animals. I don't want to get too political about it, but this kind of behavior is not in any way, shape, or form connected to hunters, the hunting industry, the sport of hunting. There is just, this is criminal activity. This is more akin to a serial killer behavior. Because
serial killer of deer, right?
This is where it would come from.
Because they did it with geese and raccoons and possums and turtles and everything, too. They make everything suffer.
This is the making of serial killers.
Yeah. They're sick bastards.
And they should be charged as such.
Absolutely.
And if you can't do it right now because of their age, then hold them in a pen somewhere under the guise of the law and loopholes, and we got to go to court. Hold them until they're of age.
Maybe throw a lion or a tiger in that pen too, just in case, just for fun. The hunted all of a sudden.
Anyways, you got to read the story. It's on fishingcanada.com, and it's an article where we've combined two
Thank God
pretty
they got
significant.
Caught. Thank God they got caught.
Pretty significant events taking place south of the border. One in Ohio, and one in Wisconsin. Read them, and you'll know why we're so pissed off.
Yeah,
at that
you'll
whole
know.
thing. Fishfindermounts.com, Peter.
Yes, our fan question.
Our fan question
comes from a big fan, Nick Tryon. Nick has been a fan for a while.
Do we know Nick?
Yeah, Nick is he's indulged with us a few times. He's fished with Jamie Pastilli. So he's done out fishing with Jamie, so he's friends with them too. And, so Nick's question was...
Fishfindermounts.com brings you this segment.
Yes, they are. They can see them on YouTube right now.
Because I don't see them here, that's all I'm saying.
The people watching will see them.
Oh.
We played a nice
Way to go,
advertisement.
Angelo. Now you just ruined
Fishfindermounts.com bring you this lovely segment.
Fish, right there, somewhere around there.
Carry on.
Yes. Nick Tryon's question. By far, my favorite episode was the one with Reno.
Oh,
so the one that we just passed, I guess, with Reno, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. How has the planning process for new episodes evolved over time? What are the key differences in how episodes were planned in the 80s and 90s compared to today?
A good question.
It's a great question.
It's a wonderful question.
Really,
Well,
it kind of stumps me right now.
I can tell you because in the 80s, I was more involved in that part of it. So I can tell you that our number of people on location has changed.
Okay.
And I'm talking the Fishing Canada show.
That makes a difference too, because you're
Whereas
setting
Outdoor
up shoots.
Journal, it was always a crew of 5+. With the Fishing Canada show, the crew was, for the most part, through the 80s and the 90s, was 3.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
4 at the top end.
Yeah, that would be bringing a sponsor or something like that, right? You're bringing somebody extra and special.
So that's changed drastically. Today we travel with a crew of 5 or 6, depending on shoots, depending on location. It has doubled in size.
Yeah, and
the logistics.
We have Ange and Pete. We have to have a camera operator. So we got Vova. We have Dean. We have Nick, and we have Steve. So there's a pot of 6 people right there to pull from. And if you get a big shoot there, sometimes you want more guys out working and whatever. You might need another cameraman. It might be 7, right?
Yeah. So it really has changed in that sense, and of course the logistics of that is from as simple as transportation issues to accommodation issues to feeding more people on the road. It just goes on and on and on. The logistics changed drastically when that crew size changed. Mm-hmm. Another area that I can personally attest to is that, in the 80s, 90s, even the 2000s, we were a little more tolerant as to the type of shoot that we would tolerate, because as we got older, we found out that, hey, this is hard enough as it is, let alone if you don't get sleep, if you can't have a shower, if you don't have porcelain.
It's a big one now, isn't it?
Now it is. But porcelain, out of the 40 years, 35 of those years, 34 of those years, we were okay.
You put up with the old outhouse if you had to.
But, the last few years, porcelain has become a very important part of my life.
Remember the first time we heard the word timber shit? That was from Gary Beardsley up on Lac Sewell. Hey, Pete, you got to go for a timber shit? We just laughed our asses off. Oh, my God. That was such a great saying.
The other thing that I've noticed change, maybe not between the 80s and 90s, but certainly between the 80s and today, is that it's getting increasingly more difficult for us. And this has nothing to do with the environment, has nothing to do with the venues, has nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with us. It becomes increasingly more difficult for us to try and figure out, a different angle
Yeah, it's hard.
for the episode.
A jig and minnow and a walleye. No, we don't want to really do that. Well, that's how we catch them here. That's a classic one for us, eh? Classic one. So, yeah.
Obviously, equipment has changed, has evolved tremendously.
Oh my God!
The amount
the cameras
of equipment
then versus now. Yeah.
The only thing I will say about the equipment, though, I was thinking about this the other day. You know, back in the day when it was, a beta cam, or even before that, 3/4 inch. It was one camera, but it had, and I'm not joking here, folks. It came with about another 100 pounds worth of
oh my God, it's ridiculous.
add-ons like batteries and all that stuff.
The whole studio
right?
with
the
you.
whole studio. So in terms of the equipment, we've changed drastically in equipment size. The cameras they went from this down to this, better down to this and better than when it was like that. The media that we record to has gone from this to nothing.
Right
exactly.
Size of a tuna.
And better quality, of course, in all of this. But we seem to need more of it. So instead of one camera, we travel with 4. Instead of one drone, we have 3. Instead of, you know what I mean? So we find that there's more and more of it. It's smaller, it's more compact, but there's more of it. So
Yeah.
that has impacted a lot of what we do is done in remote areas where we have fly-ins involved, or if we're driving too, we have to make sure that the vehicles that we're using can hold all of this equipment and or boats. And of course, don't forget our fishing gear, because I don't think we had as much back in the day either.
No, I don't think we did. You know, another thing you that point you made on the carrying more cameras, for instance. People need to realize that back in the day, when Ange and I were talking about, when we only went with that one big 3/4 inch and that one beta cam, you have to get, often you have to get cutaway shots, extra shots, different shots. So you got boat to boat, you got all this stuff. Well, you used to use one camera to make it look like you were using 2 or 3 or 4 multi-camera shoot. Now we have the multi-cameras. That makes it easier for us too, so we can do a multi-camera shoot in the boat, sort of thing like that, right? So that's just evolution of the...
We used to have to do everything 2 or 3 times, remember? Exactly the same.
And that was pretty tough when a cameraman said, "Okay, can you catch another fish for me right now? Because I'm out beside you." Okie then, buddy.
Cameramen can be such morons. Not present company excluded.
He's not even looking. I don't even think
he's sleeping. He's sleeping.
No, he's
Leave
not
him
sleeping.
alone.
He's scratching his head there, unless he's got a new technique for sleeping there.
Oh, I see. They can sometimes. They're like this. They don't understand what we do. They have
Dave
no
Delory,
idea.
Shut up and catch a fish.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he'd say to us.
So, anyways, there's been tremendous changes. All for the good. I love it. I love the fact that we now have evolved into this, whatever this is, as opposed to where we used to be. Because that was tough. That was hard. It stifled creativity. The biggest difference is that
for sure.
Back then, you could be the most creative individual in the world, but the logistics of getting there to that peak of creativity were next to impossible unless you were Hollywood. Today, all you need is the creativity, and you can cobble together the most incredible product with the technology that's available today. It's just changed the game completely.
Yeah, it has.
Right? Completely. That are it. All right, as we sit at the top of the program, a very special guest today, Dr. Premek Hamr is joining us. And
do we have to do a sale ad first before that? Or?
Yeah.
That's what Dean said to us to do, I think.
Brought to you by Sale.
He's awfully rude, eh?
This is good. We can just keep this rolling. People like this
rude.
stuff.
Do they really?
Yeah, I think
Why,
they don't. They, Dean?
Have you shared this with
Do they
them
like this
before?
kind of stuff?
I think they might. I don't know.
If they don't, we could,
All right, this next segment brought to you by Sale,
Yes,
the outdoor
sir.
store. Now, you knew that because of that, right? I'm assuming? or
No, Dean just told us that
told
about
you
a
that.
minute and a half ago.
Home for all good things outdoors, especially if you're into ice fishing. This is the time of year. They've got ice fishing rods and reels, of course, shacks or tents, whatever they call them, and a whole bunch more, Peter.
And there's a lot more new stuff coming into the store. I was in on on the weekend, they're saying new stuff is coming as we speak. So they're restocking the shelves and getting the new stuff in for this year. So it's good.
And I wonder how many people forget Sail is probably one of the top providers of outdoor wear.
Oh my God,
in the
they're
country,
maybe
right?
the best. I don't know. I mean, the best that I've ever dealt with.
So anything outdoors. If you're going to go outside your door, Sail is where you want to be. If you don't have one in your neighborhood, which you probably don't, we're fortunate enough to have one just down the road. But you can go to sail.ca. That's sail.ca and get all the goods. And they still have a sale going on, by the way. I understand there's some items up to 60% off.
Correcto.
At Sail. Now I can say what I wanted to say.
Good job, buddy. Good job.
Dr. Premek Hamr joins us now. He is an independent contractor, a crayfish biologist, which is kind of bizarre. I want to talk to you about that, Premek. But you're conducting some independent research on freshwater crayfish in Canada, which is important because we've been hearing all kinds of things. So we needed you to come on board and spread the word about crayfish. Welcome to the program.
I got to start. Okay. A guy with the name Hammer and an independent contractor. Okay, there's something going on here. We got the right guy in this cast right here.
Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Actually, I should say, I should give my alma mater a shout out. I'm actually associated with Trent University now. I'm adjunct faculty as of first of January. So I'm not a mercenary completely anymore.
A mercenary.
So
yeah, that's great.
Let's get right to the meat of the matter. We've been hearing more and more, and growing up in this industry, I'd never heard anything about crayfish other than the fact that they were real good bait.
Good to use
right?
for smallmouth bass.
Bait. Exactly.
Yeah,
so we were always trying to look for crayfish to use. But the last 10 years or so, I'm hearing the opposite, and that is that don't introduce crayfish to bodies of water. Don't look for them as bait. In fact, we have some major issues in some parts of the country with a crayfish invasion. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we have major issues from coast to coast. So from British Columbia to Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia actually is probably right now, well, I don't know if it's the worst place, but they had zero crayfish, right? Right. Just probably 5 years ago, and now they have 3. So, they're up there in diversity, but it's all introduced species. So that's just an example. And Ontario has got eight natives and 5 introduced right now.
Wow. So these introduced, are they aquarium, or how would Nova Scotia get 3 new species of crayfish in? And they're not native?
It's difficult to tell, right? But we suspect there are 2 major vectors. One is definitely angling, right? So people probably release things from live wells or buckets or whatever, because these things are cross-border things. So a lot of these things are from the United States. The problems we have in Ontario are all with crayfish from the United States that have come from the south.
Wow.
And then the other one is also pet trade, right? So this crayfish that everybody is really interested in, the marbled crayfish, probably came in we're pretty sure it came in the pet trade because it was being sold, legally at the beginning before it was banned in Ontario. So and it still is being sold legally in other provinces, by the way.
Oh, it is.
In pet stores or in bait shops, or could they be used for bait?
In pet stores, crayfish basically cannot be used as bait in most provinces. So the regulations are provincial, not federal. There are essentially no federal regulation. The only federal regulation, which I always think it's kind of funny, is for Manitoba. So Manitoba federally mandates no rusty crayfish. So rusty crayfish, which we have, and they're a big problem in Ontario, are banned federally and provincially in Manitoba, but nowhere else. So mostly the crayfish are not allowed to be used. I think BC allows a certain use of live crayfish. Ontario is one of the few provinces that allows live crayfish use,
Wow.
and only in the waters that you capture them in. So you have to go somewhere, catch your crayfish in that lake or that river, and then use them as bait. Now,
So let's talk about this more. You mentioned the marbled crayfish a second ago. Let's go back to that, because between that and the rusty, obviously those are the two big culprits right now in this part of the world. Let's talk a little bit about we're speculating how they got there. It's kind of a little late for that. They're there. Are there means in place now to try? And let me ask first: are we trying to eradicate them now that they're there? Is this the goal?
yes, yeah. So yes, with the marbled crayfish we are. With the rusties, no. I mean, basically, there's no management for the rusties. They're loose, and they've taken over most of southern Ontario. But the marbles are only in one set of ponds that we know of so far in Burlington, Ontario, right? And we are trying to eradicate them. And I've been working with the ministry and with OFAH in tandem, advising them, since I'm the guy who identified them, because nobody knows crayfish very well or knew crayfish very well before, and so they weren't identified.
Now, so, at a time and in a place where we embrace inclusiveness, and and I don't mean this in a smart-ass sort of way, but sometimes...
I wonder where you're going here.
No, but sometimes we overlook the obvious. In a time when our tolerance levels are much lower than they have in previous times in our history, what is the big deal with the marbled crayfish being loose? And for that matter, the rusty. Why is that a bad thing? It's alive, it's here, have at it. No?
Well, the marble, the problem is that it's parthenogenic, which means it's asexual, only females. And these females reproduce by themselves. So one crayfish can beget you as many as 700 young, right? Somewhere between 200 and 700, depending on the size of the crayfish.
Okay.
And then each one of those little crayfish grows up pretty quickly within a year to be mature and have another 500 to 700 crayfish. So you could be up to your armpits in crayfish pretty quickly. And this is what the problem is with the marbles, is if you have them in a tank, let's say at home, well, what are you going to do with them, right? As far as I'm concerned, there's three things you could do. You could sell them to someone else. You can dump them, or you could use them as bait if you're a fisherman, because they're nice and small. You could have the small ones. They don't have very big claws.
I bet you they'd be great for smallies.
Yeah, they would be probably a good bait for bass. And I shouldn't say this, but it's probably too late to be worried about saying this.
So the problem, let's say the plus to this would be it'd be a food source for the fish. What's the negative to it? It has to be stronger than that, right? It must be stronger than that.
Well, we have native crayfish. As I said, we have 8 natives. And like, for example, in the Kawarthas, I can't find any natives here. It's very difficult to find. I have a couple of secret spots in the headwaters of a couple of the local streams where there are still natives, and otherwise it's wall-to-wall rusties everywhere.
Wow.
For example, the Otonabee River, full of rusties. Rice Lake, full of rusties, and no natives. Zero natives. So what I like to say to people is, because a lot of people bird, right? I said, well, if you think it's okay to have just one crayfish, like the rusty or the marble, how would you like to have just gulls and pigeons?
Right.
Good point.
Would that make all the people happy? Even the birders, right? Non-birders, right? Would people be happy if they only saw pigeons and gulls outside their
seagulls
window?
shitting on everything? That'd be more
Exactly.
Dr. Hamr, where did the marble originate from?
So the marble has a pretty interesting history, right? So it's related to this crayfish in northern Florida called the sloth crayfish, and this crayfish is basically identical, except that it has only 2 sets of chromosomes. And then the marbled crayfish, it's 3 sets of chromosomes. So there was a mutation somewhere that produced this thing, and they popped up in Germany initially in the pet trade, right? They turned up apparently, I think it was in the 90s, but they didn't get loose until early 2000s. They were loose in Germany, meaning they're in the wild, and for some crazy reason in Madagascar, which they're overrunning right now, right? So they reproduce very quickly and compete. You know, they can eat fish eggs, for example. So you said it's good for fish, but not if you have hundreds of crayfish eating fish eggs, right?
Now,
So
is this a man? So you're saying this is a man-made animal? This is not. This is a test tube product, right?
it could be. So one of the theories which I really like is that when they were transported, because they were initially bought by a German, it was a scientist actually, a water scientist, who bought them from these dealers that were kind of shady insect and fish dealers, and they sold them to him, and they think that they were smuggled in the hold of a plane. And when you cool down an animal, geneticists tell me, I'm not a geneticist, but the geneticists tell me that you can actually induce mutations by extreme cold. So one of the theories is that when they were in the plane, in the hold where it's quite cold, they got shocked and they mutated. But it's not as simple as that, because since then, one of the German scientists who's studying them, who first described them actually, went back to Florida to that wild population of that, parent species, and he found triploids, meaning, asexual crayfish in that population, females that had 3 sets of genes. But the trick is that these females are not reproducing in that population. So they pop up, but they don't seem to reproduce. They don't seem to take over that population. Wow. But they are present in the wild. So maybe the Germans are not altogether to blame for this.
Right.
How about the rusty? Where did the rusty come from?
The rusty definitely came from Ohio, from American fishermen. We suspect that it came into Rice Lake first, because that's where it was first found in the Kawarthas, and that's why the Kawarthas are so bad. But at the beginning, it was not illegal to sell crayfish as bait. So you can imagine all of a sudden the rusty spread all over the province with fishermen, right? Because they were buying it and then releasing it.
See, that's a perfect example of why the bait laws are in place now of, dumping your bait bucket on the shore, because this is a perfect example. If you can't understand it in bait fish, you can understand it in crayfish.
And who among us has not done that at one point in their life?
Of course you did. I feel sorry for little Sammy. I got to let him go down the ice hole there, and he's going to be free, right? But
exactly. It's not even malicious in many cases, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people don't know that you're actually not, by law, not allowed to move crayfish dead or alive.
That's right.
So what kid knows that, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Put them in a jar and take them home and whatever, right? So let them go in a stream by a house.
Dr. Hamr, what exactly is a crayfish?
So a crayfish is a crustacean. So it's related to most closely to lobsters and shrimp, but it lives in fresh water.
Okay.
One of the neat things about crayfish that make it different from a lobster is they don't have any planktonic larvae. So when they're born, they hang on to the mother. I don't know if you've seen this, but sometimes you catch a crayfish and it'll have actually babies underneath the tail, not just eggs.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
The reason I asked that is because it seems to me that the perfect solution to for the rusties anyways, because obviously the marbles have not taken hold yet, the perfect solution is to start, promoting them as great table fare, because I got a very good friend south of the border, and I mean, this guy, he'd probably single-handedly be able to clean out all of Lake of the Woods rusties in one season. He eats a lot of crayfish.
You would think so, but unfortunately, this is not the case. I actually, in the early 90s, when I came back from Australia, where I did my PhD, I did a study where I tried to reduce the population in the Indian River, which is flows into Rice Lake, actually.
Yep.
And I took out a trapping license, so I was the only bona fide trapper in Ontario, licensed trapper, I should say. And for a couple of summers, I hit this population really hard and took out all the big edible-sized crayfish, and actually sold them to a Cajun restaurant in Peterborough, which doesn't exist anymore. But they were, for a while, they were selling, instead of crawdads, they were selling rusties.
Right.
And this study showed that it made absolutely no difference, because there's so many small crayfish. They just keep reproducing, and they just start reproducing at a smaller size if you take out the big ones. And rusties reproduce at a really small size, which gives them an advantage over some of our natives. That's one of the problems. Wow. And so it doesn't work. And in England, they have the same problem. They have a North American crayfish introduced, and they've actually opened up the season, and they have food trucks with crayfish, and they encourage people to eat them. But it has not stopped the invasion, or it has not really reduced the density. Wow. Crayfish are just resilient.
I wonder
right?
if there's a type of crayfish that eats like this rusty. Is it better than one in Louisiana versus? Is there a type of, or they all taste the same? If they got a big tail, they're good. Any idea?
Yeah, they all basically taste the same. Okay. The trick is, where do they come from? So I eat crayfish quite a bit. I love them. So but the Louisiana ones can be sometimes muddy because they come from bayous, right?
Right.
Whereas our crayfish come from clean streams, or it depends where you're getting them. But and they actually taste better, but they're not as big. That's the thing. We don't have. Well, I shouldn't say that. We've just discovered that we do have big crayfish from the south, and they may be heading for Georgian Bay as we speak.
Oh my God!
It's all of a sudden it's crayfish. Like,
holy
it's
crap!
nuts.
Nobody knew about it.
Why is this happening now? Like, where was this 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago?
Well, the rusties have been here since the late 60s, right? So it did happen.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and they spread slowly, naturally, and they also, as I said, spread with the release from fishermen, because they were around Rice Lake, and then all of a sudden they showed up in Lake of the Woods, right? So they didn't march there.
Yeah,
we had a
long march.
We had an interesting experience on Lake of the Woods recently. With rusties. First of all, it was bizarre. We deployed our cameras down to the bottom, and the floor of the lake was literally moving with crayfish, like thousands of crayfish, like an army,
like a Dawn of the Dead down there.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so weird.
But what was really bizarre is that they were attacking our baits. Like, they were
we caught
aggressive.
Them. We caught them on our rigs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, when I was doing that study in the Indian River, one of the other rivers that I had the license for was this river called the Ouse, and it had such high densities that I measured up to 100 per square meter.
Oh my God!
And as I walked up the stream, I was crushing them underfoot, right? Because there's so many of them there. They were behind me, and all the other ones were eating the dead ones.
No, they're eating themselves. Now we were told that when they invade a new body of water, or a new part of a body of water that they already exist in, that they're feeding on native crayfish. That seems to be one of their preferred food sources. But in order to access those native fish, crayfish, they mow down the weeds.
But they eat vegetation. They're They're omnivores. So they've shown, for example, in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they've shown that the rusties have cleaned out lakes of all the vegetation.
So it's true. Wow.
And so are the marbles. So that's an issue, right? If you take out all the macrophytes, the plants that live underwater, like, that's going to affect the ecosystem. that's going to affect your insects, right? So they eat aquatic insects, they eat aquatic plants, they will eat other crayfish, but they mostly will eat like smaller crayfish. And but they're omnivores, as I like to say. They eat everything, and everything eats them.
Wow!
Kidding.
Imagine if you get a combination of crayfish and invasive carp, like grass carp or something. You get them from the top and the bottom. Like it'd be.
I'm laughing, but it's not
wow.
funny.
I mean, yeah, that's scary.
What in the case of what Pete's talking about, the invasive, carp family that is upon us now, that eats vegetation as well. There, we're trying to be a little more vigilant and try and recognize the fish before it takes hold. But obviously, in this case, in the Rusty's case especially, not so much the marble, they're here. There's nothing, they got through the gate.
And their impact is as strong, I bet you, as grass carp, because we saw it in Lake of the Woods. And now maybe it's a little guy this big, but if you got 4 million of them on one weed bed, it's gone. Right?
What can we do? Is there anything we can do, or do we run for the hills and like find a new place to live? Like, I don't know.
It's very difficult, right? So I'm worried about the marbles, and by the way, the ministry and the fisheries and oceans and OFAH did a survey of eDNA. Do you guys know what eDNA is? It's environmental DNA, where they sample the water and it tells you what is in it by looking at the DNA. Okay. And we have unfortunately some indication, and I don't want to jump the gun or talk about their data too much, but there's an indication that the marbles are in other parts in Ontario as well.
Ouch.
Based on this eDNA, so they're not under control. And neither are these White River crawfish, which we found initially in 6 Mile Lake. Do you know where that is? Provincial Park?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And they look like they're spread into Severn Sound. And, we have them basically really close to Georgian Bay now.
And the only way they should be able to get there is through anglers. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking, because 6 Mile Lake has competitions, right, that are international. And how else would they get there?
Yeah.
And they're also on Peely Island.
Oh.
And apparently there's a lot of angling going on. There's anglers coming from the south, obviously.
Yeah.
And they've been on Peely Island for apparently since 2015, but nobody knew, because they're just crayfish and nobody knows crayfish, right?
Right.
One of the bad things is that, there's basically no research done on crayfish, very little research done on crayfish in Canada. In the States, there's a lot more. There's a lot of my colleagues are Americans, but in Canada, when I go to the World Crayfish Congress, which is every 2 years, I present my research, and I'm always the only Canadian there. So we really don't have any idea of what the impact is. Like you said, what is the impact? We don't know. We don't know how many fish eggs they eat, or, what's the impact on vegetation. There are no ecological studies that I know of in Ontario or in Canada, for that matter. So, now that I'm retired, like, people didn't care about crayfish for since when I was young.
When you needed them to.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden I'm like, everybody wants a piece of me, right? Everybody wants advice because I can identify them positively, right? They can be pretty sure that it's what it is when we're dealing with introduced species. But we need more research and we need more education. So we need to educate people. It's going to be really difficult to stop the spread of these 3 big invaders we have in Ontario. They're here to stay.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they're here to stay. And if the marbles, we only have them so far in that one location. So we have to try to contain them or eradicate them there, for sure.
Scary.
But if next summer we find them in 10 other locations, then you have to think about, is it worth spending a lot of money and time trying to eradicate them in Burlington if you have them from Windsor to Ottawa, right?
At some point, you got to cut your losses and say, hey, there's nothing we can do, right? But
Is there a chance that birds could transport these things? Because we hear that with fish species. I mean, in the U.S., especially in these strip pits and that, they get introduced by herons and gulls and whatever. And they're on their maybe they're on their feet. The fish eggs are on their feet and they're somehow fertilized. Whatever. Can that happen with crayfish?
Not likely. There's not any evidence that I can think of. I mean, I'm not, I don't see all the literature, but I've never seen any evidence of that. And I mean, when birds eat crayfish, they usually kill them, right? So, but I have seen a crayfish dropped by a heron or by a seagull, one adult. So that's but one is not a problem for most crayfish except for the marbles, right?
Right.
Because one crayfish
can do it.
starts a new population. So, but all the other crayfish, one is not going to harm it, right? One male would do nothing, basically.
So,
right?
Gotcha.
If crayfish, these two crayfish that we're talking about, are so dreadful for the environment, how about our 7 or 8 native crayfish? How are they being kept in check? It sounds like the crayfish is just a bad critter to have in our waterways. How about the other native?
It's a very important critter, right? It's a keystone species, what biologists like to say, because as I said, it eats everything and everything eats it. But the densities of our crayfish are way, way lower than these guys. Like these guys are just out of control when they boom, right?
Okay, so it's a numbers thing. It's not that particular.
It's kind of like zebra mussels,
Right. Wow.
So just back to your other questions, what can we do? I think what we can do is educate, and this is why I'm also speaking to you. I've been on a mission since I retired during COVID, and I've been just working on crayfish 24/7. And I'm just trying to educate. So I've given seminars to biologists from coast to coast, and I've been on TV, I've been on the radio, and I'm just trying to spread the news so that people know not to move crayfish. And in terms of management, I think it's important to protect the places that don't have them.
Mm-hmm. And in particular, you're saying to anglers that maybe watching or hearing this podcast, you're telling them not to transport crayfish from one body of water to the other. Plain and simple. That's just pretty simple.
You guys are anglers, and I fish too, but I'm just skeptical that people, when they go bass fishing, they actually spend an hour looking for crayfish before they start fishing.
Well, certainly if this was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I would say absolutely. For sure. Yeah? But I don't think anymore. I don't think I've not heard of it going on for a while.
I guess if you're on a trip and you have a couple of days, you might go in the evening and set a trap.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question
but if
for
you're
you.
there for a day,
yes,
right.
You bring them in.
Yeah.
You probably bring them in, right?
Yeah. So a question for, I know you're not an MNR conservation officer or anything like that, but you stated somewhat of the rules of Ontario that you have to catch them in that same body of water that you fish them in. How do you prove?
Yes.
How do you prove that you caught them in that body of water? What's the whole process here that the MNR? Do you have any idea? Because you're pretty close to crayfish, so maybe you have an idea.
Well, again, I've been working with the enforcement quite a bit. Identifying crayfish for them, but you're absolutely right. It's very difficult to prove. Yeah. But if you have, for example, these white river crayfish, they're huge, they're red, they look completely different from ours. So the inspectors can tell them, right? So they can police that, but they can't really. Rusties are difficult to police because in the cohortas they're everywhere.
Right.
So in some ways it doesn't really matter anymore,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there are spots where they're still natives, and if you introduce the rusties there, then spoiling the last
Right.
refuges, right?
They have no chance, do they? The natives have no chance. when all
No,
these guys
they've
come.
been essentially eliminated,
Right.
like I see it here in the Cohortas. I did my master's thesis in 1981 to 83 at Trent University, and I caught natives in the Otonabee right below the biology building. I would just put on my waders and go down to the river, and there were 2-3 different species of natives. Now you go there, it's just rusties. Now, and I've been looking since I came back in the 90s, and they're gone.
Well, they must be by now. I'm talking to Rusties. They must now be well entrenched within the food chain in the waterways that they're in, right? They got to become now. They've got to be an important source of energy and protein for local fish.
Yeah, they must be. I mean, we, again, as I said, because we haven't done many studies, we don't really know what their, ecological niche is, right? What are they doing? Are they impacting the fish? Are they, or positively, negatively? We don't know, right? Because we haven't done any studies. Wow, I've basically been just chasing crayfish around the province, trying to figure out where they are. Like
the mad crayfish doctor.
And my specialty is actually life history. So it's how they grow, how quickly they mature, and so on. So I've done that for the Rusties already twice. But so that's my specialty. It's not even ecology, like interactions between fish and crayfish. That's not my thing.
How did you become interested in crayfish, Premek? Kind of curious. It's not something that a young man, wants to get into biology and stuff. Say, hey, I'm going to hang out with crayfish. How do you get involved in crayfish?
Well, I mean, I think everybody loves crayfish once they see them because they're so interesting, right? They have claws and antennae and all those legs and stuff. Kids love them, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway, but I did my first project when I was an undergraduate in Montreal, actually, because I came from Montreal. I did my first project, my honors project on crayfish, and then I never looked back. I actually got a scholarship to come to Trent University to study crayfish, and then I got an international Commonwealth scholarship to go to Tasmania to study the world's biggest crayfish, which they're like 10 pounds.
What?
Oh,
that's
come on,
10 pounds.
This is the lobster, big lobster.
We're talking like this.
Yeah, we're talking almost a meter long. Yeah.
Holy smokes! Tell us about that. That's exciting. What is it? Is it a native to that area?
Yeah, it's a native crayfish. It's only found on the island of Tasmania, which is like the kind of the Newfoundland of Australia. It's south of Australia, and they're only in the rivers that flow north into the Bass Strait. And I was so lucky because in the 80s, there was nothing known about these things. Like nobody had studied them. They were named, and there was a distribution map, so you knew where they were, and you knew how to identify them. But there was no life history on them at all. Like people didn't know how long they lived and what they ate or anything. So I did my PhD thesis, among other things, on these giant things. Like I did a comparative study of 3 crayfish in Australia, but it was so much fun because I was the first person to do it, and I'm still pretty famous in Australia because of that.
Now that's got to be a dangerous animal at that point, like a 10-pound crayfish. Like that's nasty. Yeah. Those claws.
Yeah. Never mind that. Imagine the fish that eat that sucker.
I still have
we're gonna go down there. Yeah, you get your fingers. Yeah, we're gonna go down there to Tasmania, and we'll drop 10 pounders down to catch 200 pounders.
Smoked.
Wow.
Their claws are bigger, they're bigger than your hands, and they could put their claws around your wrist.
Oh my God.
They could crush your wrist because they're very powerful.
Oh my God!
Yeah, because little wee guys are powerful enough, and they pinch you, it hurts, So
there's actually an episode on the River Monsters. You know that show? Yeah. He went to Tasmania and caught a big crayfish with a friend of mine who's working on them now.
Oh, wow!
An Australian guy.
That's crazy.
Going back to
so that's how
this,
I got into it.
this doom and gloom here. So we got the spread of crayfish. It seems to me like the worst culprit is anglers. So why? Maybe you'd know, why would the DFO and all the provincial ministries just say no crayfish across the board? No, it is not allowed to be used. I mean, you're saying a lot of provinces don't, but Ontario does, and who knows what.
Quebec.
But they just say, why would they say blanket? That's it. It is not going to be used for 10 years in experiment or whatever.
Well, some provinces do say that, like you can't use them at all, right? So, but it's provincially driven, right?
Okay.
And so, yes, we've been, for example, we said to the feds, we said, like, why haven't you banned the
Right.
marbled crayfish across the board in all of Canada?
Yeah,
because they're legal in Quebec. You can go and buy them in Quebec and bring them across the border.
Yeah.
Once you're in Ontario, you're breaking the law, right?
Right.
Because you're not allowed to be in possession of them at any time.
Right.
So technically, with these introduced species that are banned, which include the marbled crayfish and the white river crayfish, which I told you, the big ones, right? The big red ones that are now in Georgian Bay. You're really not supposed to be handling those, even for bait, technically, I would say, because you're not allowed to be in possession of them or moving them or anything. Rusties, however, are a different story because they're not prohibited.
But that one sounds like it's too late to do anything with that one anyways.
And I think that's what it is. But I think I just think it's because it's really difficult to make new laws, right? So the feds are saying, well, it's very difficult to add a species, to the banned list federally. It has to pass through all these hoops, right, before it can be done.
Bureaucracy. It's all about bureaucracy.
They can make a new tax pretty easy, can't they?
Oh, tax, carbon, tax fuel.
Assholes. Oops, sorry.
You'd have to invoke some sort of emergency measure. It's possible if it's deemed an emergency, then it can be pushed through faster. Apparently, again, this is not my thing, right?
But you are, according to everything I've heard and read, you are the guy that can make that happen because you're the expert in this field. You've got to be able.
I made it happen.
You've got to be able to get the ear of either the scientific community in government, or certainly you've mentioned the OFAH a few times now on this episode. You got to be able to get their ear and say, guys, it's time we brighten up here. We know that this is a problem, and we also know that there's a 99.9% chance that the spread is due to anglers. You guys, according to you are the voice of the anglers, the Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Surely to God, there's enough power between all of you to go to whoever in Ottawa and say, okay, Monday morning, this is what's going on. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, the OFAH is doing, a lot, right? But they're not. It's not easy to change the laws, but they are doing most of the research, and that's why I work with them. So they are doing their thing. We made this guide. Just a sec. I don't know. I'll just show it to you on the screen. We made this Ontario guide last winter, and it's very popular. It's being used by the COs and by general public. We printed 5,000 copies, and they're almost all gone.
Nice.
But you can download it for free online at OFAH. They have a invasive species section, and there's a link there. So if you go, so you can get it, you can put it on your computer. So things are getting done. I mean, things are finally moving. I mean, I've been pushing as I said, since I retired in 2020, I've been on crayfish full time because I was just a teacher before that because nobody cared about crayfish. I couldn't get a job studying crayfish with the ministry or with a university for that matter.
Wow.
I lectured at Trent for a while, and then I gave it up and went to teach environmental science at a private school. And that's what I did for 20 years. And I studied crayfish during my summer vacations. I would put out one paper each year, and I have the most papers on crayfish in Canada right now.
I believe it.
And I was a high school teacher, right? So when I retired, I started full time on crayfish, and since then, a lot of good stuff has happened. You know, I've educated a lot of people. I wrote a big report for the ministry, and as a result of that report, they banned the marbled crayfish and this white river crayfish. They actually banned all of the crayfish in that genus, so they're now totally illegal in Ontario. And they also banned another crayfish from the West Coast, which is a big problem in Europe. And so if it does get over to Ontario, it could also become a big problem, even though it's a Canadian native.
Damn.
And it just found it in Minnesota. So someone brought it over from West Coast to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You got to ban crayfish from
You do.
fishermen. That's obviously
North American ban.
Anyways,
I don't know. I mean, I bass fish, but I find that the worms work almost as good as the crayfish.
Exactly.
well, okay, I do have to. I do have to put,
easier to get.
Don't glorify the crayfish.
No,
Angelo.
I'm not glorifying it, but
we got to talk them down.
But tube jigging was
Tube
given
jigging?
birth because of crayfish.
Exactly. There you go. You don't need crayfish.
In fact, I got to ask you a question before we let you go. We Pete and I both at the same time in our careers discovered that crayfish turn into these bright, vivid colors at certain times, I guess when they're molting or reproducing, whatever the case is, but their claws turn into these vibrant colors like chartreuse and purple and blues and stuff. And we didn't know that up until then. But recently we found out we were using tubes that had really weird colors on their tips, on the tentacles of the tubes. And all of a sudden we found out why, because crayfish in particular areas at certain times of year, they go into this bright color mode. Tell us a little bit about.
They come in all sorts of colors, but you're right, when they molt, because they shed their old skin, when they're newly molted, they're much brighter in color.
How often do they molt?
It depends on how old they are. So the little guys will molt they can molt up to 10 times a summer.
Oh, wow. But
the females, once they're adults, only molt once a summer, and the males twice a summer. So the adult crayfish, the bigger ones. Okay. So they don't molt that often. The males twice, the females only once. After they've let go of their broods, they'll molt.
How long does that last?
The molt?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the molting process can take up to several hours, right? So they pull out of their skin, and then they're soft-shelled. So the soft-shelled crayfish apparently are really good for bait, right?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. We've been in a few occasions where locals and the guides especially would tell us that the perfect timing, because the crayfish are all starting to shed their skin, and therefore predator fish are right into that mode, and there seems to be a magic time in the life cycle of a crayfish where it becomes really good table fare for most game fish.
Yeah, there's a snake that's actually endangered, the queen snake in Ontario, that only eats crayfish and mostly eats soft-shelled crayfish.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. I've worked on that too, because everybody who does anything with crayfish calls me up now.
No kidding.
That molting, let's say the 1 a year molting, is it seasonal? Is it like fall, winter, whatever, or is it any time?
Summer.
Can happen? No, it's seasonal.
Okay.
It's summer. So the males will they'll mate early. I mean, it depends on the species, but most of them, like rusties, for example, they'll mate early April. They are the first ones off the mark. That's how they outcompete everybody. So they're like in April, they will have mated, and then the males will then molt when they're finished mating. So around May, and then they'll molt back. So they will molt out of the reproductive condition into a non-reproductive condition, and then molt back again in midsummer to reproductive. So they're ready for the next reproductive season in the next spring.
Just trying to time my jig fishing.
Oh, I know, but it's true. The more you know about
Exactly.
Yeah. If you know the life history of the crayfish, it's important, for management, but also for fishing, right?
Absolutely.
And during the molting period, which could take, you said hours, not days?
No, hours, yeah.
Hours.
But I mean, they start preparing for days. They'll stop eating and they'll start loosening up their carapace. They'll start pulling at the old carapace because they molt everything off. It's crazy. Like people, that have crayfish as pets, which they're not supposed to really, say, "Oh, I had one crayfish, now I have two," or they go, "My crayfish died." And I go, "Are you sure it didn't molt?" Right? Because the skin is complete. Like it looks like a crayfish.
Wow. Fascinating.
I said,
Claws and all, like everything? Like it's all
legs,
attached?
Those little tiny legs.
Even the end of the intestine.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And the eyeballs, like the covering of the eyeballs.
Yeah.
So
no wonder you got. Now I understand why you got into this. I mean, crayfish are fascinating critters.
they
for
are
sure,
fascinating, and a lot of people study them around the world. As I said, I go to the World Corvo Conference every 2 years. I was just in Croatia this summer, and there are people from all over the world. We had people from 50 countries, I think. And so I have colleagues all over the planet that I'm in touch with.
Hopefully somebody listening to this, some youngster listening to this, will be inspired and motivated by you today to maybe look at as a profession, because it sounds like we need more people in Canada looking into this, working with this wonderful critter.
I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit more research because of the exposure. Yeah. And as I said, I'm now associated with Trent University, and I'm hoping to co-supervise students. I'm not going to be teaching anymore, but I will help with research, and I'm hoping to enthuse. We already have one project with one of the professors
fantastic.
That's on crayfish. So I would encourage everybody to get a guide. So that they know what crayfish it is that they're dealing with, and just try not to move them, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's the key. The key, it sounds like, is for us as anglers to just get them out of your mind, get them out of your head in terms of using them as bait. And we do that.
And
if that's the easiest solution.
If you feel bad about killing them, you just freeze them. Like, you don't have to step on them, which is nasty. But you can put them in your freezer, and they basically go to sleep. They slow down, and then they slowly go to sleep and they freeze. And if you leave them overnight, then you could just throw them wherever you like by then. It doesn't matter.
I'd get a divorce. My wife would open the freezer up and see about 13 crayfish in there. What the hell's going on here? I'd be done.
Hey, I've got crayfish in my freezer right now for eating.
Nice.
Dr. Hamr, really appreciate you joining us. Before you go, tell folks how they can find more on you, about you, and about your research and studies that you're conducting.
Okay, so I don't know if I have the website. As I said, if you go to OFAH, their invasive species unit has a link to the Ontario Crayfish Guide. So I encourage you to get a copy a digital copy. We will try to reprint another printing, so we'll have more hard copies, hopefully. And so you'd be able to get that from OFAH as well, because they produced it together with Fisheries and Oceans. I want to make sure I give them heads, because they financed it. So the federal body financed this guide. So we have to give them credit for that. And I'm on Twitter, Dr. Crayfish.
Oh, Dr. Crayfish!
Dr.
Imagine
Crayfish.
that.
Love it.
So if you have questions, you can always DM me on Twitter or send me a message on Twitter. So as I said, Dr. Crayfish.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I thank you, my friend. All the best to you, and hopefully our paths will cross out in the field somewhere, and we can.
Thank you for having me. It's great. The more information we can get out to the public, I'm sure the more good we could do.
Yeah,
I encourage people to report crayfish also if they see some strange crayfish that they're not sure what it is. They should try to report it either to the Invasive Species Hotline on OFAH, or iNaturalist is also good. I check that all the time for new things turning up. That's how we found these marbled crayfish, was on iNaturalist.
Okay.
Because I saw a photo and I said, this is a marbled crayfish. And then sure it was.
There you go. All right, my friend. All the best
Excellent.
to you. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
worries. Nice to meet you and nice to talk to you.
You too.
Who'd have thunk it, huh?
That's very interesting stuff too. You know what
Well,
I
it's
mean? And
funny.
it's going and it's ongoing and ongoing all the time. So
That day that you and I, you remember when that was that we discovered that crayfish do, in fact, go chartreuse and lime and purple and orange and all that stuff?
well, I'm assuming it's that Lake Simcoe
Absolutely.
ordeal with Reno.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was
I had no
insane.
idea. I could never figure out why these tubes were always so colorful on the tips, right?
Yeah.
And in fact,
We hardly ever use
you
them,
could
you know,
dip
we did.
them. You could dip them and make them even more colorful.
I used to avoid them. I'd be a pumpkin, full pumpkin. Yeah, I want that. It would be a full smoke color. Yeah, that's what I want. What the heck is all that chartreusey stuff coming out of
the
there
end.
like that?
Yeah.
And then Reno pulled it off one day, and we actually did a direct comparison. I was running smoke. Mikey Burris and I were running smoke-colored patterns,
This
which
was
is a
good.
very nice, beautiful little crayfish eater. You know, and we went 6-pound test and 8-pound test line, light, and Reno was kicking our asses with this brown and chartreuse, and he had 17-pound test line. It didn't, and no finesse. He had bait casting gear. We were spinning. You finesse it, Mikey, and we got our asses handed to us. We just said, "Wow!" Well, to the point of, we said, "Reno, you might want to throw some of them tubers over in our boat here, buddy, please." And it worked, man. So
And that's when because afterwards we said, well, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Why would that work? Because it was so fascinating.
absolutely.
At the time, it was so fascinating that it was just this one particular color on the
Yeah.
tips of this tube that made him. He was able to outfish the three of us 10-1.
Unbelievable.
10-1, and
Like
not
watching
only
them.
numbers.
Put on a
but-
clinic out there.
but
That's putting on a
quality.
clinic right there. Oh God.
Not only a lot of fish, but it seems that he was attracting bigger fish.
I remember him.
Remember
He'd
that?
set the hook and go, "Oh,
Whoop.
there's another one, boys." And we'd all say, "Shit, what is he doing? What is going on there?" You know, we should have clued in. Like, I didn't even think of this before a long time ago, but even pre that, we always throw black blue in our jigs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
you know,
why?
Why not just straight black?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it'll work too. But that black blue always, still to this day,
Still to
works
this day.
maybe better than any other color combination going on
And
a
it's
flipping jig. You know?
because crayfish during that one period of their cycle, well, in this case, as we found out today, that cycle could actually that could happen 10 times in a season.
Yeah, for younger ones, yeah.
But during that time in their life when they shed, the claws turn extremely colorful. I should have asked him why that would be. What would be the reason
Yeah.
that a crayfish, you would think nature would have done the opposite, because when it's
hide 'em.
molting,
Yeah.
you want to hide. You don't want,
Yeah.
but yet it makes, it doesn't even make sense. We got to ask that. Because
That's-
I'd
yeah, that's a
love
good
to
one.
know why.
Yeah.
But that's when their claws turn bright orange, bright chartreuse, blue,
Orange.
purple.
Orange is a classic example.
Orange is a
The
classic example.
Orange claws in your live well.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. How many of you have seen it like that, right?
Exactly.
Just spitting up claws galore.
That's when we learned. Anyways,
cool. That's
fascinating
that was
gentleman.
neat. I liked
It'd
it.
be great to run into him out in the field. He'd be great on a Fishing Canada episode.
It'd be great to have him in the boat, yeah. You're
talk
throwing
about-
jigs and tubes
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And he has some cameras down there looking for. I'm surprised at how many are here in the close to us in the Quartus.
Well,
That's insane.
We found out today that the Rusties started in
Yeah,
Rice Lake.
down
We
here.
thought they started
we
up
thought
north.
they started up north. The first we heard of them was that last year,
Yeah.
right? So.
Anyways, that are it. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did today. I want to thank all of the characters, Volva over there, Nick over here, and Dean over there. He's Peter Bowman. I'm Angelo Bile. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio has been brought to you in part by
The Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle & Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.